Good evening, visitors, and welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Gerard Pratt, and joining us today from the Royal Australian Navy is Warrant Officer Cherie Thayers. This evening, we're honoured to acknowledge General Angus Campbell, Chief of the Defence Force, Commissioner Robson Iavro, Commissioner of the Vanuatu Police Force, Mrs Cheryl Alaiana, Director General, International Affairs Vanuatu, and Mr Ernest Sumto, Second Secretary, Vanuatu High Commissioner, and the accompanying delegation. As always, we welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria, and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony from across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Ladies and gentlemen, if able, please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through until the end of the war. The idea of this National Memorial and Museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal John Buchanan Young. John Young was born in 1895 in the town of Waiamongoroa on New Zealand's South Island. Known as Jock, he was one of 10 children born to miner John Buchanan Young Sr. and his wife Selina. Jock grew up in New Zealand and moved to Australia with his family when he was 12 years old. The Young family settled in the Hunter Valley town of Weston, where Jock and his siblings attended the local public school. Jock was a member of the school's cadets program and on completion began volunteering in the local militia. At the outbreak of the First World War in 1914, Jock was working as a coal miner at Hebben Colliery in Weston. Jock Young enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force on the 22nd of January 1916. He was assigned to C Company of the 34th Battalion and commenced a short period of training in Australia. He embarked for active service at the start of May, sailing from Sydney on board the troop ship Horotoroa. Private Young arrived in England on the 23rd of June 1916. He continued training alongside other new cadet recruits and was promoted to Lance Corporal in early August. He travelled to France at the end of November 1916 and his unit entered the front lines a few days later, just in time to spend a bitterly cold winter in the trenches. Young's arrival in France was marked by the German strategic withdrawal to the Hindenburg Line. Their retreat was followed by Allied units who seized their opportunity to push the enemy further back. In advancing on the Germans, these units were confronted by well-prepared rearguard defences and booby-trapped towns, which resulted in a series of bloody clashes. The 34th Battalion was not involved in the vicious battles around Lanicourt and Bullecourt during this period. Instead, they were forced to wait until operations shifted to the Ypres Salient in Belgium before it could join the fighting. Lance Corporal Young's first and last major battle of the war took place here, when his unit attacked enemy positions at Mézine. The battle began in the early hours of the morning on the 7th of June 1917, when 19 mines laid beneath the German lines were detonated. The explosion destroyed the enemy's front line, creating massive craters and allowing the Allies to advance on their objectives almost unopposed. Private White, who also fought in Mézine, described the attack in writing. At 10 minutes to 3, we heard, felt, and saw one of the largest explosions the world has ever seen. The earth simply rocked like a boat at sea when Mézine Hill went up in earth, smoke, and flames. Another minute, and we were over the top. Our boys with bombs, rifle, and bayonet soon had Fritz at their mercy, and after the awful gas attack he had just put upon us, you can bet your life we did not spare him. The heat was terrific, and we were following from within 50 yards of our barrage, and the heat from the bursting shells was like a furnace. We worked all day, strengthening our positions, shells screaming, bursting, and tearing the earth all around us. Over the week that followed, the gains made around Mézine were consolidated, resulting in the overall success of the operation. Despite this, Allied units suffered from nearly 25,000 casualties. Of these, nearly 7,000 were Australian. Among the missing was Lance Corporal Jock Young. His father, desperate for news, wrote to Base Records, "I have a son at the front, and he was missing since June, and I ask you for God's sakes to assist and to find out if he is alive or dead. If we knew, it would be a relief to know his fate. Please do try and get news of him and let us know at your earliest convenience, and you'll earn the lasting gratitude of his distracted parents." Over the months which followed, the Red Cross made inquiries to find out what happened to Lance Corporal Young. None of his comrades had seen him since they went over the top in June. Over the months which Private Durham stated it was well known in the battle that Young was blown to pieces by a shell at Mazine. There was nothing left of him to bury. By November 1917, no further news of Young had come to light. A court inquiry later determined that he had been killed in action during his unit's attack at Mazine on the 6th of June. His commanding officer, Lieutenant Sinclair Finlay, wrote to Young's father, "I feel it is my duty to write to you and tell you how deeply I feel the loss of your son. An officer is not supposed to have any favourites, but I must say he was always my favourite, and I do not remember one single occasion that I saw him that he did not have a smile to greet me. He was a grand little soldier, and we miss him all greatly." Young never received a final resting place. His family instead paid tribute to him in a memorial notice placed in the Newcastle Morning Herald. It read, "Sleep on, brave son, in a distant land, in a grave we never may see, but as long as life and memory last, we will remember, ever think of you. We prayed for your safe return and longed to clasp your hand, but alas, our hopes are blighted until we meet in that better land." Lance Corporal John Young was 20 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal John Buchanan Young, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope for a better world.
If able, please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere, or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director and staff, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorials Development Project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening. Thank you.